Errol Lawson. He's a speaker and he's an author and he speaks in a lot of schools, particularly in the Midlands. So he's come all the way up to Doncaster today to speak to you. So please welcome Errol Lawson.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. As Frederica said, my name is Errol Lawson. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. I've got a couple of books out. My first book's called From the Postcode to the Globe, How to Overcome Limitations and Realize Your Potential. My second book came out in June this year. It's called Teenpreneur, How to Build a Business in Your Teens, for all the budding entrepreneurs out there. My company's called Emerge Leadership. We're based here in the UK, also in Ghana, in Africa. We go into schools and we train teachers and leaders and students to improve their performance and be the best that they can be. So get through a lot of really, really cool stuff in over 50 schools right now in the UK alone. And life's fun. Get to travel a lot around the world and do all kinds of really, really interesting things. What I love to do most of all, though, is come to places like this and speak to young people, especially those of you at age sort of 16 to 19. And I like it so much because when I was your age, my life was very, very different. Very different. In fact, at age 11, my parents divorced and I went completely off the rails. I mean, completely off the rails. My dad, who I was close to, went off one way, and mum went off to do her own thing as well. It was like myself and my younger siblings left to kind of fend for ourselves in a way. And I went completely off the rails, carrying this sadness around the inside of me for a number of years. Around age 13 in year 8, I started smoking weed and selling weed in school. Year 8. Now, I was a smart kid. I passed my 11 plus. I was a smart kid, you know, and went to grammar school and everything, but carrying it on the inside of me. And around the same time in my life, around age 13, I was at home one day, Saturday morning, sitting on the bed in my bedroom. A letter comes in the post. Dad's handwriting, I recognize it. I open that letter like you'd open a Christmas present, you know, feverishly, like, what's Dad saying? And I open the letter and it's Dad saying to us, sorry, son, made some bad choices. I'm in prison. It's 13. The letter was stamped on the front with HMP Wormwood Scrubs, a prison in London. I remember reading that and I cried my eyes out. I cried like a baby. I was broken. The thought of my dad being in prison, like I'd heard of other people's dads being in jail, but my dad being behind bars, it messed me up completely. That was the first time. Then the second time, and a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time, and a sixth time. 6 times my dad was in and out of prison during my teenage years. It was a crazy, crazy time in my life. The first time I cried, but by the 5th or 6th time, it actually became quite cool because my friends, I had no big brothers to kind of back me up on the street, if you like, and no big cousins, you know, to look to. But I had this story of my dad being in jail. And my friends were like, yo, your dad's in jail, blood. Why my dad's in jail? You know, it's serious. And I'd be like, yeah, man, I'm on this, man. I'm serious, yeah. Jumped on the back of the hype, you know. Gave me credibility. It gave me respect. It gave me status. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm on this. And all through my teenage years, I lived this lifestyle of just being that kid. Smoking weed, selling weed, involved in gangs, drugs, you name it. And I got to age 16 and I came home one day. My mum was at home. She was an amazing lady. We didn't get on well then at all, but now we get on much better. Mum was like, son, listen, I've had enough. I'm smelling weed in the house. I'm finding girls in the house. The police are coming here for you constantly, son. I've had enough. Move out now. Find your own way. Do your own thing. Kick me out of the house. I'm 16. Homeless. Not much about your age, in fact. Imagine that. Lived in a hostel for a while, lived with family, lived with friends. I moved around 12 different times between the ages of 16 and 19. It was a crazy, crazy time in my life, believe me. I could say so much more. But if you'd have known me back then, you'd been forgiven for thinking that he's going to end up dead or in jail or in a mental institution. That's the way my life was heading. But by the grace of God, my life has turned around completely, to say the least. Like, I was in my old school recently, Bishop Veazey's Grammar School, and my geography teacher, Mr. Ball's still there. And they've asked to come back and do a talk for all of year 10 and all of year 11. And he's standing there thinking, how on earth has Errol Lawson come back to our school? And when he was here, he was smoking this and doing this and selling that. My life has completely transformed. And I always get asked when I go into schools, Errol, how on earth have you turned your life around? What happened? What did you do? What went on? And I want to share with you one thing today that I could share lots of one thing that I think has transformed my life. And hopefully if you take this on board, it will help you to maybe move your life to a higher level as well. And it sounds simple in practice, but it isn't so simple. It's simply this, to take 100% responsibility. Taking 100% responsibility. You see, when I was a kid, I blamed everyone for everything. I'd say, Dad, it's your fault I'm doing my bad stuff. Dad, it's your fault. If you were here for me, if you weren't in jail, I wouldn't be so bad. It's your fault, Dad. I say, Mom, it's your fault. Mom, you're always nagging me. You're always in my ears giving me grief. Mom, you weren't on my case so much. I'd be at home more often. It's your fault, Mom. I tell you, it's the police. They don't like us. They're always stopping us, always searching us. It's the police's fault. I tell you, it's the Illuminati. It's the system. I blamed everybody else for where my life was at, except myself. And I found this, guys, that when we say to ourselves, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, everything changes. When we say to ourselves, I'm not taking 98% or 99%, but 100% responsibility for our life, for the choices that we make, for all of our actions. When we own it, I'm telling you, everything is almost magical. Literally, in that moment, we become powerful. I did that. It began to change my life. And I learned that through a book that someone gave me called What Makes the Great Great, which told stories of people who had come from nowhere and now achieved great things. And there's one story in particular about a man named Benjamin, his name just got out of my head, George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver was his name. He was a slave in the 1800s and he lived on a plantation. If you were a slave back then, you had the surname of your slave master, hence George Washington Carver. His slave master was Mr. Carver. And the story goes that one night, in the middle of the night, some bandits came around, they kidnapped George and his family and all the rest of the slaves from off the slave plantation. In the morning, Mr. Carver comes in, opens a shed, looks inside, there's no slaves there. Gets on his horse, gets his men together, get on their horses, and they go out on a recapture mission to get their slaves back. They're only able to rescue George and his younger brother. The rest of the slaves are never to be seen again, fear dead. They bring George home and his younger brother and they raise him on the plantation as their slaves. And I began to think to myself, in that moment, I would have had every reason, if I were George, to give up on life. To say, forget it, what's the point? I mean, I'm here, I'm in these chains every day, all day. I've got no sense of hope or aspiration. How can I go and start a business or go and travel? I'm stuck here with cotton and corn every day, all day. My family are dead. What's the point? Well, that wasn't his mindset. George went on to find 300 different uses for a peanut. Random, right? Peanut, like facial cream, hair oil, peanut butter, you name it. And he goes on to become a world-famous scientist. True story. It's now named after, in America, the George Washington Carver Bridge and the George Washington Carver University, named after this man. I began to read that, think to myself, wow, like, if he went from down there, like a slave, and now he's up there, and if he could do that, what am I making excuses about? Like, what am I blaming other people for? And I began to take on these stories and began to encourage myself and decided to myself, you know what? If it's meant to be, it's up to me. And when you say to yourself, guys, you're not going to blame mom or dad or sir or miss or my friends or anybody else in this life for what I achieve in life, who I become in life, the goals I accomplish in life. When you choose to say to yourself, man, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, your life changes. I want to encourage you guys today. I know you're really smart. I know you're in a great school. But I want to ask you to step up your responsibility, even if it's that little 1%. Take 100% responsibility for your actions, for your choices, for your decisions, and watch your life change. Guys, thank you for listening. I'm Errol Lawson. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Wow, powerful stuff. I love that. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. I think that's a really good mantra for life. And something else that I picked up on from what Errol said about that 100% responsibility. As a speaker now, I work for myself, and the book stops here really, but I used to manage an office for a recruitment consultant, and if there's one thing that used to wind me up like a rat, it's something didn't get done properly or whatever, and immediately somebody pipe up and goes, nobody told me I was supposed to do that, I wasn't shown properly. It's like, take some responsibility. I would much rather somebody said, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. I'll know not to do that next time. And Charlie and Hannah would probably kill me for doing this, but you know, you get this at home, don't you? And I'm sure all of you, especially if you've got siblings, it's the same thing. From the simplest things like my stapler goes missing from my desk. Where's my stapler gone? Wasn't me. And I think, well, there's 4 people in this house. And I know I haven't moved it. Why is it that 2 teenagers and 1 adult grown man feel the immediate need to go, it wasn't me, it was clearly one of them that's moved it. Where is it? You know, and it's the little things. You start by taking responsibility and translating to the big life-changing stuff. So,